Hi, I'm Dr. Ali Hushman. Rowan University is committed to educating the public about the importance of higher education in our state and region. That's why we are proud to support the important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Adler Aphasia Center, helping stroke and brain injury survivors recover their speech. New Jersey State Nurses Association and the Institute for Nursing. Rowan University, educating New Jersey leaders, partnering with New Jersey businesses, transforming New Jersey's future. TD Bank. Choose New Jersey. Our mission is attracting companies to the Garden State. Summit Medical Group. And by QualCare Inc., a managed care company administrating health plans that care about your health care.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato, coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio here in beautiful Newark, New Jersey. We're pleased to welcome once again State Senator Loretta Weinberg, a Democrat from the Bergen County area. She is the Senate Majority Leader. Good to see you, Senator.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be here.
Let's talk about a range of issues, but the first one I want to talk about is one that does not get a lot of attention, but impacts so many people: aphasia. Tell folks what it is, tell folks why it matters to you, and finally, what you're trying to do on the state level to deal with it.
Well, aphasia is a disability that usually comes from a stroke, a traumatic brain injury, an accident of some kind, and it results in the inability to speak, to say what it is you want to say. There's a slogan from the aphasia group: it affects speech, not intellect.
Yeah, the Adler Aphasia Center that you know very well.
Exactly. There is a group that started in Bergen County called the Adler Aphasia Center, started by two absolutely tremendous, wonderful citizens of our county and of our state, Mike and Elaine Adler. And I first became involved with it the way many people do. First of all, years ago, my mother had aphasia from a stroke, so I learned a lot about it. And she would know what she wanted to say. It would become so frustrating because the words wouldn't come out, or different words would come out. And then years later, my sister, who was a radio broadcaster.
Out on the West Coast.
Out on the West Coast, a communicator, had a stroke, and aphasia was the result. And my sister came east for a couple of years after that to live near me. And I found the Aphasia Center, the first and then only group that provided not only resources for the aphasia victim or aphasia patient, but resources for families, for caregivers,
That's
support
right.
groups. And it started because Mike himself.
Mike Adler was dealing with aphasia directly. We've lost Mike, but he was an incredible leader. And Elaine Adler continues the fight with her team up there.
That is true. She is a remarkable woman who is carrying on her husband's legacy. When Mike had his stroke, they looked for a support group, couldn't find it.
Yeah, they created
So what
one.
did they do? They created it.
So go back to the Mike Adler Aphasia Task Force, right, being established in the Department of Health. Okay, that's one piece of this. What needs to be done on the state level to help those who are dealing with aphasia and their family members?
Well, with the establishment of the Mike Adler Aphasia Task Force, we hope, first of all, to call more attention to this. You know, hundreds of thousands of people nationwide suffer from this. Sometimes they don't even know the name of their disability. They never heard the term aphasia. So we want to bring recognition and then education and research. And that's what we're hoping that the Aphasia Task Force will do. There's a lot of research being done in this area, neurological research, a lot of support groups with the use of computers, a lot of help for aphasia patients. So we're hoping that by bringing a spotlight and education to this issue, more people will recognize it.
Let's shift gears. You know transportation better than most.
Well, I know a little bit about a bridge.
Well, you know about that, but you also know about going to board meetings at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, an entity created in 1921 through a compact between New York and New Jersey. Governors of both states have a lot of influence. There'll be a new governor in New Jersey in 2018. Be the same governor in New York. What are the top 2 things that need to be done at the Port Authority moving forward that would actually help the citizens of the state of New Jersey?
Well, the top, of course, the Gateway Tunnel and finding the funding to replace the 100-year-old tunnels under the Hudson River that are not only more than 100 years old, but were compromised and sandy. This is the link in the Northeast that really leads to the shipment of goods throughout the entire United States. So we need to get the federal, state, whatever money
Are the feds going to put, the Trump administration going to put up the money?
Right now, in the budget, there is $900 million to start the redesign and rebuilding of what they call the Portal Bridge, which is the first stage of that.
It's in the budget as we speak now. By the way, we're taping at the end of September. I just want to clarify that. So go ahead.
Yes, it's in the budget as we speak now. Hopefully it will stay in the budget, and hopefully the money will be there.
What would the economic impact be to this region, particularly to New Jersey?
You know what? I don't even think you can add that up. It would be tremendous. If those tunnels fail, which they're going to, if they're not taken out of use and fixed sometime over the next 20 years, they are going to fail. And that is the major thoroughfare in the Northeast to be able to get under the Hudson River. And as I explain to people very often, you know, if you need something in Nebraska, very often it comes from a port in Newark or Elizabeth, needs to get shipped there.
Right.
So the Midwest is dependent upon our economy here too. And this is, it is of such import that it's almost hard to put into words.
A couple minutes left. New governor, new legislature in 2018. Top 3 issues are?
Property taxes, the economy, school funding.
Yeah, so school funding. Should we fully fund the state formula for state funding to public schools? Could we, should we? Where the heck's the money coming from?
Well, we started that this year, in this year's budget, of fully funding the formula that has not been funded over the last 7 years, the formula that the Supreme Court declared appropriate. And it really is about the money following the child, and we can't afford not to, because beside our geographic location and our transportation infrastructure, the most important aspect of New Jersey's economy is our educated workforce.
But at the same time, Senator, for certain school districts, like, say, I'll give you 2, Hoboken, Jersey City, they've gotten what some argue is more state money than they should be getting because there's so much economic development there. There's a boom going on there. And that certain suburban communities are getting the shaft and not getting enough state funding for public education, you say?
We started to correct that in this year's formula. You're absolutely, well, you're not saying it, quoting other people, but they are absolutely
That's not a crazy idea to say that, just because they're urban communities.
Those formulas were put in before those big economic booms and before those tax breaks.
That's right.
To many of the people who built and helped bring up both those communities. So this formula starts to correct that, and I think that's an important step. And it does it gradually with some pots of money there so no one school district is hit too hard.
State Senator Loretta Weinberg, she is the Senate Majority Leader. Been in the legislature for a couple years?
Just a couple. You can add a few zeros onto a couple. 25 years.
25 years?
Yeah.
and you remain optimistic about our future in spite of the significant challenges we face.
I don't think you can be in politics without being an optimist. You have to really believe that things can get better, or why be here?
Thank you for your service, Senator, and thank you for always joining us on public television.
Thank you.
This is State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato, and we will be right back.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Steve Adubato here. We are pleased to be joined by our good friend. I've lost count of the number of times you've been with us.
Many times.
Every time is valuable. He is Dr. Steve Margeoetes, who is Executive Director and founder of Main Street Counseling. We were talking about veterans as part of this long-term series, Help for Our Heroes. What kind of mental health issues do most veterans and their family members, Steve, deal with?
Few things. There's depression. There's social withdrawal. There's an overreaction, which happens a lot of times with anger.
What do you mean overreaction to anger?
Well, sometimes they're mad for what they've experienced, and sometimes that comes out in different situations. We had a vet recently who went into a store, and they asked him if he was a veteran, and he overreacted. What difference does that make? Why are you asking me if I'm a veteran? Truth was, they asked him because there was a discount if you were a veteran.
Wow.
So situations like that, kind of like road rage, and you see that somebody overreacting to a situation. Sometimes it's difficult with authority figures, okay, to deal with them. That could be bosses. With spouses, parenting issues, money issues, conflict issues. Not all vets, but the ones we've been seeing at Main Street Counseling, those are some of the issues. We run anger management groups, and a lot of vets are coming in through the anger management group to deal with their reactions to situations.
Do most veterans, Steve, know, are they aware that there's some sort of problem, that they do need help? Or, I know it's not one or the other, or is it that someone else picks it up and tries to facilitate getting a veteran into help?
It's more the spouse.
It's more the spouse?
It's more the spouse who calls first at Main Street. We had great luck over the last couple of years with spouses coming in first for individual help and then bringing the vet in to do couples work. So if I had to say if it was one or the other, it's the spouse more than, I see you're different. I know you're different. I know what you went through. So it's the spouse more than the vet, our experience, who's come into Main Street.
So right now, the spouse is these significant others, those who are closest to veterans watching this series right now. They see something. They see an overreaction, what they perceive to be a consistent overreaction to a certain situation. All of us have, not all of us, some of us have anger issues, but you're talking about beyond the pale. Mm-hmm. You're talking about patterns that are disconcerting, concerning. What does that person do?
I would acknowledge the situation. I would not deny it. I would not minimize it. I would acknowledge it, not just calling Main Street Counseling, but something's off. You see it a lot at home, like I said, with withdrawing.
What happens if excuse me for interrupting.
Go ahead.
You confront it, you deal with it, the vet pushes back, gets more defensive, now what do you have? I
think the spouse should come to therapy first and deal with that family dynamic. Steve, it's similar to somebody comes in with a drug or alcohol problem. There's a tremendous level of denial, but it's the spouse and the kids who are seeing the different interactions at home. I think the worst thing is asking somebody to go for help and they don't go, and then the dynamic stays the way it is. So it's similar to going to AA or Al-Anon. Let's break up the dynamic. Something's off.
How honest is the conversation we have in our state first, but our nation overall, Steve, about the kinds of challenges and problems veterans face? Everyone will say, you talk about veterans discounts. Everyone will also say, as a Yankee fan, in the middle of the seventh inning, you know what happens. You have a veteran who served. God bless America, everyone holds a flag, and we love our veterans. That's great. Not nearly enough.
Hardly enough.
But the kind of conversation you're talking about is difficult.
It is.
But absolutely necessary.
It is. It's difficult. You know what it is, Steve? It's intimate. You're talking about real feelings, okay? And that's hard for all of us to talk about. The hardest thing to talk about is money. And
why money?
Because it reflects so much your self-esteem. How much are you making? How much are you not making? The resentment comes back. I've come back. I've served. And that money issue comes home first and foremost.
So if the veteran is struggling with money issues because he or she is struggling with employment issues, it's not just a money issue, it's an employment issue, it may be a transportation issue, it may be a training issue. You got all these things coming together. How do you deal with that or those issues from a mental health point of view? Because it's not that one thing.
No. I think what you got to do is look at the overall picture and talk about everything. Let's acknowledge, let's be as genuine as we can as therapists, acknowledge this is overwhelming. Okay, and sometimes the reaction is, you know what, I'm just going to withdraw. I'm not coming out of the house. I don't want to start dealing with going for interviews and getting rejected, and I don't have a car or mass transportation. But it needs to be acknowledged that this is difficult, and what you went through is an incredible experience, okay? And that experience more and more and more has to be talked about. There's where the trauma impacts your decision-making and your impulse control.
The conversation we're having here at the Healthcare Foundation, I'll repeat what I've said in some other of these interviews, that we're having a roundtable with 12 experts, advocates, government officials, people who care deeply about providing services to our veterans who need the help and finding a way to make that outreach more effective. Why is that conversation important?
I think it's important because this issue has to be on the forefront. You know, if you don't see it every day, it becomes invisible. Similar to the Yankee thing. You know, you see it in the middle of the 7th inning, but then when do you see it? Probably it's one of the most visible things we see on TV with respect to vets on a daily basis.
It is. It's better that it's done than not done, but it is not nearly where we need to go.
Exactly. Those spots, you could say, are public service ads in some ways, because you're acknowledging that population.
Steve Margeotes, as I said, every time you join us, you enlighten us, challenge us, and get us to think about the needs of those who are too often forgotten. Thank you, Steve.
Good. Good seeing you, Steve. Thank you.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are thrilled to be joined once again by our friend Leecia Eve, who is Vice President of State Government Affairs for New Jersey, New York, Connecticut at Verizon. Good to see you.
Good to see you, as always.
And you love public broadcasting.
Yes, I do. I'm a huge fan.
Yes.
Yes. Go NJTV. Yes.
See, I knew you were going to do that. All right. Yes, you have a very close connection to us. I'll just say that.
Proudly so.
But we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about some things going on. By the way, talk about public service. You just became a commissioner of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Yes, I did. Extraordinarily honored. I had my first board meeting in July. I was nominated by Governor Cuomo of New York, whom I worked for a number of years, and confirmed by the Senate in New York in June. Had my first meeting, along with a number of other commissioners appointed by Governor Christie and Governor Cuomo. We all had our first meeting together in July, including with our new chairman, Kevin O'Toole.
That's right.
Yes.
Senator O'Toole came on to be the chair. Biggest issues the port is facing impacting us?
Well, I mean,
is it the gateway? Is it the gateway?
Well, gateway is obviously huge, right? It's a $30 billion project.
The tunnel. Let everybody understand the Gateway Tunnel. Check it out. Read about it. Go ahead.
And it's critically important, frankly, not just for our region, but it's important for the economic vitality of the East Coast and the United States.
How so?
Because of the tunnels that are currently existing that take train traffic from, say, Washington, D.C., to New England. I mean, just think about the movement of commerce and people for entertainment, for government, for private sector purposes, the movement of people from Washington, D.C. to New England. You have to use those tunnels that are currently existing, but as a practical matter, are close to 100 years old. And so the Gateway project is critically important, as I mentioned, not just for the region, but really for the economy, for the Northeast, and for the broader country. And it's reflected, the importance is reflected in the fact that you had Governors Christie, Cuomo, you had the New York congressional delegation
New
led
Jersey,
by
right. Who's leading in New York?
Senator Schumer.
That's right, Chuck Schumer.
And then you had Senator Booker
That's right.
there, as well as a number of members of Congress, all meeting in the White House with the President of the United States.
He's on board?
Well, I'll leave that for, obviously, the President of the United States to mention. But
right now, as we do this program
Yes.
on September the 19th, 2017, as we tape, there's some money in the budget for this, federal budget.
Yes, that's my understanding, and what I know what you know, which has been reported publicly, and that is that the meeting with the President went very well, was strongly bipartisan. Everybody understands the importance of this project, as I mentioned, not just for the region and for the Northeast, but for our nation.
Let's shift gears.
Yes.
So, in 2015, Verizon acquires AOL.
Yes.
A year later, Verizon acquired Yahoo. Now, there is a new company called Oath that connects everything I just said.
Yes.
Could you help us understand not just what it is, but again, why it matters?
Well, you know, those acquisitions underscore that Verizon long stopped being your grandmother or even your mother's telephone company. The effect of those acquisitions and the formation of Oath was extraordinary. As a result of those acquisitions and the synergies that have come from them, we now have, as part of the Verizon family of companies, 50 brands, business to business, business to consumer technology brands that are part of the Oath family.
But put this in context for us. Telecommunications, the industry, regulated by the government.
In part, yes.
In part.
Yes.
Greatly impacting our lives. Did you ever envision the kinds of technological advances and changes that we're facing today, and God knows what we're going to be facing in the future?
I don't think anybody could have. I don't think anybody could have. And one of the things that my team and I do, and this is the core, part of the core of our responsibility to Verizon and frankly our customers, is to focus on educating stakeholders who want to do the right things by their communities, by their constituents, by their states, but just educate them and say, listen, a regulatory structure that is 40 years old, when everybody was using dial-up telephones, is not a structure that incentivizes innovation. It is not a regulatory structure that incentivizes investment. And so one of the things that we constantly underscore is, listen, we have to change this process to keep up with the technological changes so that, Verizon in particular, which is the one technology company that chooses to call, New Jersey our base of operations, doesn't have one arm tied behind its back as we continue to invest billions and billions in the state of New Jersey alone for the benefit of our customers.
In the time I have left, I've often asked this leadership question in different forms.
Yes.
You have risen to a leadership position in a variety of venues. Biggest advice you have, particularly for women who want to be leaders in their respective fields, is?
Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Because if you're not true to yourself, kind of nothing else really matters. If you're true to yourself, that can help you weather challenging times. If you're true to yourself, it helps you maximize the joy that you get from success of others or success for your company or your family or yourself. Be true to yourself.
I'm curious about this. Do you think it's any different for women of color as opposed to women who are not of color when it comes to leadership?
I think women of color in particular have some challenges because we, in some environments, fortunately I do not have to deal with this issue at Verizon, but many women of color have to deal with the double whammy of both sexism and racism. But I think as a practical matter, in terms of the leadership challenges, they're the same. And frankly, I would give the same advice to my nephew. Be true to yourself.
So male, female, doesn't matter?
Oh, it doesn't matter. The challenges, depending, if you're not in a supportive environment, I mean, I'm proud to work for a company where of our 12 members of the board of directors, we have 4 women and 3 people of color. And our leadership team includes extraordinary women and extraordinary people of color. Not every company is that way. And so I would say to anybody, black, white, red, brown, young, seasoned, young man, young woman, be true to yourself. Are the challenges sometimes greater for women and people of color? Oh, absolutely. But being true to yourself, I think, regardless of who you are, helps you weather the challenging times and helps you build most successfully with success.
The next time Leecia comes back, she's going to tell us about her trip to Africa, because she learned all kinds of interesting things that she will share with us.
It was a trip of a lifetime.
Right? And you'll talk about that.
Yes.
Leecia, thanks you so much.
Oh, so good to see you, as always. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. State of Affairs, coming to you from the Agnes Veris TV studio here at NJTV News. That's it for this edition of State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for watching. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato. See you next week. Thank you.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Adler Aphasia Center, New Jersey State Nurses Association, and the Institute for Nursing, Rowan University, TD Bank, Choose New Jersey, Summit Medical Group, and by QualCare Inc. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth, and by Jaffe Communications, where business, media, and government converge in New Jersey.
Highly educated and perfectly located in the heart of the Northeast Corridor, New Jersey provides access to top talent and one of the most concentrated and diverse consumer markets in the world. A business located in central New Jersey has access to more than 22 million consumers within a 2-hour drive. Whether it's our strategic location, transportation systems, reliable utilities, or talented workforce, New Jersey has all you need to grow your business. To learn more, visit choosenj.com.